I'm going to cover two workmanship scenarios that you might come across. This bracket is going to hold a heater and is not to a print, but it was a good opportunity to point out a couple things. If you were working to a print, how would you plan to make sure that you meet all your requirements on your fillet sizes? So the first part is going to be when you have this component that you're not going to be able to put your gauge on because it's just simply not long enough. So the question is, how are you going to deal with that? All right, so one leg down on this square tubing, what you would do at this point is measure out, I'm going to say an 1/8 inch fillet for this one. So you'd measure out an 1/8 inch on the square tubing, and then you can vibra etch that line. And you know that when your toe covers that line, you know ahead of time that you met your minimum leg length. And then for the angle here, what I'm going to do is measure with a scale and make sure that I've got an 1/8 inch or more. This one's just over an 1/8 inch, almost 3/16. So with this, I know if I come up to that edge and consume it, I know I've got over an 1/8, but we will be able to get a fillet gauge on this side, so it's not going to be a huge deal. It was more coming down over here to get the leg length on that square tubing that would be more of the problem. And we'll still be able to check throat thickness off of this square tube. The other piece that you see is you've got this obtuse angle on both sides here. So still fillet size is going to be 1/8 inch all the way around. And then how we're going to tackle that is later we'll put a gauge block 1/8 inch on this face, and then we'll project a straight edge out and make sure that we got the measurement. A little bit trickier with the obtuse angles or even acute angles, but two conditions that you might run across, so I figure we'd capture this right here, and then we'll go, after I weld this out, we'll measure and put some gauges on it. On the obtuse angle, here's where you can see you can run into some problems if you're just looking and not really measuring. Looking at it right here, you would think, oh yeah, I got an 1/8 inch piece of cake, no problem. However, you're really looking at the width of the weld more so than the height of the leg length. All right, so if you're welding to a code, make sure you have an actual gauge block. Right now, I know that this wall thickness is 125. I'm gonna use that as my 1/8 inch, just for demonstration. So you see this scale projecting over. On the far end, it looks good. It's hitting the fillet weld before it hits the base metal. So we know our size is good there, but then notice as we move along, right now it's just touching it. And then once we get here, now we're no longer up to size. Just missing it. It's easy to get caught up looking at it from a different angle where you think you got it, no problem. But right here, you're missing. So solution is simply add more fillet material up here, build that up so that when you project that scale, you know you got your leg length. Here we have the other fillet we talked about earlier, where there's no real base material to measure off of this direction. So again, imagine if you had vibra etched that 1/8 inch line over here and consumed it, you know you got your leg length. And then right here, you can kind of see where the fillet gauge is scraping a line. And I ate that edge away a little bit there, but size-wise, definitely got the size that we needed. And then when I flip it to the throat gauge, you can tell that it's gonna hit the fillet well before the edge of that tool would have hit the face of that component, telling us that we have our throat up to dimension. So that's it. Those are two scenarios you're bound to run into at some point. Now you've got an idea, or at least a couple ideas on how to get creative and make sure you got your fillets up to size. All right. Thanks. Hope you got something from the video.